Teresita Blanco, the artsysister, and we're reading La Casa or The House by me, Teresita Blanco. So we're finishing up chapter 6. Eduardo's day had been pretty busy. After working for 10 hours, he was finally able to return home around 9 p.m. Things had been slow up until that. Suddenly, every woman in an 8-mile radius was giving birth. It was one of those full moons. Usually, after the 8th month, most healthy women in Cuba tended to give birth during the full moon. When a lot of women synchronized their pregnancy, it tended to get pretty busy. Eduardo had only come home for a couple of hours to rest and to check out the family. He would then have to return to finish the night shift. He was working himself ragged for a pittance. Still, it was the easiest way to get milk for the family. A newborn mother always got a healthy supply of milk. Whatever they did not drink was collected in a bottle for Dr. Mason. He would then smuggle the milk bottles out of the hospital hidden in his socks. This was the reason why his socks always smelled of milk. Aside from treating the maids, Eduardo had to deal with a poor bastard that had gotten mauled by a pack of dogs. Every exposed piece of flesh had been bleeding. There was even some loss of muscle tissue in one of the legs, and the belly fat had been partially devoured as well. It was this side that helped develop Eduardo's fear of dogs. When he was small, his parents did not have pets since his mother thought them messy, and she was allergic. As such, she never learned to understand dogs or even like this. This sudden fear of dogs would eventually cause Eduardo some problems in the future. While operating on the man, he commented, "What sort of vicious dog could have done such a thing?" "See, all right, doctor," said one of the gossiping nurses. "See, all right, is that the name you gave the dog?" asked Eduardo. "That is what the children call him," said the nurse. Alright, we finished the chapter, but let's continue reading. Chapter 7, the Ceiba. January came, and with it the promise of getting presents for the children. Since Lucero was finally in school, Eduardo felt it was time to get her started in catechism. The cathedral where all the children were taken was uphill. It had an elegant baroque design, and it had a large grassy field and a couple of Ceiba trees. The local witch doctors were in the habit of turning around the tree. As they did, they made their wishes. Their wishes, not their witches. The head priest was called Father Carlos, the head priest of the Catholic Church, not of the witch people. He was named after Saint Carlos. It was common for Catholics who entered the church to adopt the name of their patron saint. The nuns also followed in the same habit. He was about 57, of medium stature, with bald and white hair, with bushy eyebrows and expressive eyes. He was somewhat overweight, which as a virtual sign that he was well connected. Nobody with connection ever went hungry in Cuba. Father Carlos would see the parishioners engaging in such paganistic practices, and he would shake his head sadly. Since those witch doctors had good connections, Father Carlos could do nothing about them. He could not even chastise them. He did not fear their curses, but he indeed worried about the harm they could do to him and his flocks in the real world. Through fear and rights, the santeros could compel their followers to entice the government to close up the church. Ideally, the Cuban government wanted to get rid of all religion. This was easier said than done. As things stood at the moment, the church, the santeros, and the Cuban government had an unspoken non-aggression pact. Still, efforts were still being made to get rid of the Catholic Church for good, both within and outside of Cuba as well. For the moment, they were slowly infiltrating it. Father Carlos was one of the few true shepherds left in Pinar del Rio. The rest had been replaced by wolves. As for the Santero, many went to the Cathedral and even took their hosts in their person. For them, doing this little ritual did not exclude them from the Catholic religion. If it was up to Father Carlos, he would have excommunicated them lot years ago. It did not make sense to him to pray for salvation of one day while wishing harm upon one's neighbor with another. Jesus taught you to love your neighbor, not to steal his hair in order to curse him. At the moment it was close to noon, the children were engaging in choir practice. It was the only time during the class setting that Lucero made a sound. This was in part due to her brother's presence. Whenever there was a familiar face, there was a metamorphosis in her general attitude. Suddenly she was pleasant to be around with. Eufrasio liked choir practice. He used to sing the loudest because he wanted God to hear him. Today the nun had officially discharged Eufrasio from his choir duty. He did not care. He liked singing rather loudly, "River of life-giving water, river of life-giving water." Since he started to depart, Lucero followed after him. The nun said, "You do not have to leave, Lucero." Lucero did not bother to turn around. She pretended not to hear her. The brother and sister left to sit beneath the Ceiba tree. There was a pleasant wind and everything was peaceful in the church. From time to time, people dressed in white would come to do their little rounds. They gave a cursory glance at their children before returning to their worshiping activities. Lucero said to her brother, "Do you remember when we were small and we used to lay down on the roof of the apartment to see the clouds pass by? We were small children," asked Eufrasio sternly. "I suppose, but don't you wish to go back to that?" asked Lucero. "I don't know. I have plenty of other things I could do. Then just sit down and see the clouds passing by," said Eufrasio, getting up. Lucero's face darkened. She rose from the ground and the children made their way back home. Aside from the church, the Ceiba tree was also found in the cemetery. It was a somewhat of an uncommon tree. It was usually found in places of spiritual significance. It was common for Catholic settlements to build on top of the sacred sites of the Indians, but in Cuba they were called the Taínos. They would substitute other symbols and beliefs with their own, even if there were no more Taínos left in Cuba. At least many of the sacred Ceiba trees still remain. Near one of the last Ceiba trees in the cemetery, there was a lonely grave. The graves in Cuba were built above ground. The water table was too high for proper burial. It was common for the children to visit the graves to play hide and seek while the adults mourned. Eduardo was visiting his father's grave. He always visited his father on the anniversary of his death. He did not see the man much, and during the time his father was sick, his mother would take him out to go to the shopping center or to the park to distract him and his siblings. She felt that it would scar his small children if they saw the man suffering through chemotherapy. After many years, Eduardo barely remembered anything good about his father. He only had two vivid memories of the man. The first was when his father returned from his operation. He saw his father's shirt open. There was a surgical scar going from his chest to below his navel. His blood froze, and it took all his strength to come near his father after his mother beckoned him to welcome the poor man home. For some reason, Eduardo knew that his father was not going to survive. He did not have any hope on the matter. It just felt like a matter of time. Eduardo looked upon the gray marker of his father, and he read his epitaph aloud. He then slowly read the man's name. After remembering the incident with the surgical scar, Eduardo remembered the last few hours he spent with his father. It was common for Eduardo and his father to do laundry together. The man had told him that for the first time in a long time he was feeling better. When night fell, his father was rushed to the hospital. Days passed before Eduardo's mother finally told him that what he already knew. To make his mother feel better, Eduardo lied and he said that he dreamt of his father. He told her that his father was in heaven and in peace. In response to this kind gesture, his mother told him that his father's last words were, "You put the wrong medicine in me." When he was young, Eduardo thought the nurse had murdered his father. After he got to know the culprit nurse, he realized that she was just careless. She would thoughtlessly accidentally kill patient after patient, and nothing bad would ever happen to her. Her bad karma eventually caught up with her, and she did that because of the criminal negligence of a different nurse. This belated justice never brought peace to Eduardo. His father was dead, and what occurred to the nurse did not change his path. Eduardo thought of this and many other things while sitting beside the grave. A grave robber noticed Eduardo by his father's tomb, and he decided to pick a different target. Grave robbing has always been common in Cuba. The carcass of a human holds some value. At times, the government uses random bodies to teach future doctors on anatomy. This too had occurred to Eduardo's father. Little did the poor man know that he was praying to an empty casket. In another part of Pinar del Rio, Irina was going to visit her favorite Ceiba tree. It was located in the gardens of the first house she ever lived. The house was in ruins and abandoned. Nobody lived there aside from the occasional homeless person. Her earliest memory was the Ceiba tree. She was lying down in bed looking out the window. It was a stormy windy night and she saw faces inside the tree. The faces naturally frightened her, so she did what any normal girl would do. She hid under the covers and she turned her back on the tree. The following night she saw that the faces in the tree were mocking her. It was at this point that Elena figured that she was just being a little silly. The current Elena looked at the tree forwardly. The dark shadows and the play of light made it seem like there were tiny creatures moving about the tree. As she had done many times in the past, Elena spun around the tree 3 times. She wore an elegant white dress and a white turban. The only color decorations came from the necklace and bracelet. Both were decorated by red and black beads. The red and black is the color of el igual. One cannot do any santeria without summoning the fellow. He holds the key that connects the human world with the world of the saints. He also acts as a translator. Depending on his mood, he can mistranslate your message, thus angering the saint you are trying to summon. With each turn, Irina made a wish. In order not to be disappointed, Irina never asked for something that she knew was impossible. She was also not of the habit of wishing people harm. What did Irina wish for? Elewa only knows. After concluding this little task, she started making her way towards the Grand Cathedral to pick up the children. Father Carlos saw her dressed in white and he commented, "Celebrating the saints? Yes, like any good Catholic should," said Irina proudly. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, child. God be with you," said Father Carlos. "And with you as well," said Irina as she entered the church. "How odd," said Father Carlos, laughing. Irina did not make any remarks. She was already familiar with the usual trend, with Father Carlos' usual teasing. Despite being a priest, Father Carlos did not believe in such petty superstition. He was a practical Jesuit man who believed that beliefs could not be forced upon another person. If it wasn't in a person to believe, then all a priest could do was pray. Regardless of their belief differences, Father Carlos respected and admired Irina. He knew she was a good person, and every once in a while Father Carlos would visit Irina and her family to dine at her table. She was just that amazing cook, in spite of the scarcity as far as ingredients were concerned. Before looking for the children, Irina looked wondered about the church. Despite coming here every Sunday, she did not get tired of looking at the decoration. The church was called San Rosendo Catholic Cathedral. San Rosendo was a Catholic saint from the 10th century. Like most saints, he was said to be a healer. He taught people both with words and deeds. Why was this church built in Pinar del Rio? Well, because San Rosendo is said to be the patron saint of that region. Each saint is believed to have a particular region or country that they care about. The region that has a patronage with a particular saint always has a church dedicated to the fellow. The Catholic Church usually arranges the patronage based on where the saint is born. How and why Pinar del Rio got this medieval saint patronage is something that nobody ever thinks about. Though Francis was thinking about it. He had recently run into a book about the lives of saints. It seemed odd that Pinar del Rio would have a Spanish medieval saint as a patron. It would make more sense to dedicate the church to a saint that was actually born in Pinar del Rio. Then again, after reading the book a little more, Francis realized that there were no saints in Cuba, with the exception of Saint Anthony or Mary Claret. However, he was from Barcelona, Spain, and he worked in Santiago de Cuba. As for the Cathedral of San Rosendo, it was built in 1903. Alright, so we'll stop it for now. Bye bye.